Hey, what's going on guys? Garden Shed here and welcome! So today we're going to be talking about something that I've seen quite a lot of on Facebook and different forums and things like that. Basically people asking, where's my new motorbike, where are my bike parts, etc. My daily job gives me a pretty good insight into what's going on in the world and also the causes of this issue. So I thought actually it would be quite useful to make a video on it and hopefully, give people an understanding of what is going on. Over the last few years, I've made a point of steering away from two things which is generally considered, good etiquette when you don't know people, and that is religion and politics. Now obviously I can't go into this issue completely steering clear of politics, so I'm going to try and keep it as neutral as I possibly can do. Judging from the internet and things, the majority of people seem to think that the delays in getting things is actually down to Brexit, but it isn't really. Although Brexit plays a part in it, it's not sort of the main contributing factor. Yes, Brexit and sort of people getting their heads around new paperwork and stuff is slowing down imports a little bit, but that is not the main cause of it. The main cause of, the delays in things is actually COVID. You might be saying, but, why is it affecting stuff, etc. But let me go through. So essentially in the world today, there is a massive steel shortage. One of the biggest mills in the world had a couple of their furnaces break down at the beginning of 2020. And due to COVID, they couldn't get spare parts in, they couldn't let the people in the factory to be able to fix them. So as a result, they built up a huge backlog, and we're talking hundreds of thousands of tons of steel. Part of the reason why things are taking so long to come through is, although the mill was back up and running, I believe in sort of early January, something like that, they've got this huge backlog, but globally there is a massive shortage, and that stems not just from the issues with the mill, but also because of COVID. Most mills and various different factories are working at reduced capacity due to social distancing or whatever it may be, and also repeated lockdowns. Now, lockdown in the UK is very different to a lot of parts of the world. There are lots of countries that the governments just can't afford a lockdown, in which case, there's a COVID outbreak in the factory and they have to shut it down and sanitize everything and then restart up. Whereas places like China, for example, if there's a lockdown, it's a full-scale military lockdown and you're not allowed to leave your house at all, not even to get food and things like that, to the extent that courier firms and the police and local councils and things like that are actually delivering food to residents. Factories throughout the world are battling with this. You've not only got a massive shortage of raw materials due to raw capacity. For example, the price of steel has gone up 100% since September last year. Once they can get raw materials, they're then working on a reduced capacity. And it's not just from a materials sense that there's delays. COVID has also created a huge global logistics problem. People at majority have been spending more time in home. Their purchasing has actually increased because, they're buying furniture to be able to work from home, desks, chairs, things like that. They're using their time within their houses to decorating, etc. As a result, the UK is importing a huge amount of stuff, and so is America, etc. The majority of these goods are coming from Asia, China as well. So what you have is huge congestion in the ports, which is not only created by the sort of purchasing habits of people, but you also have the government, for example, bringing vast sums of PPE, medical equipment, etc., which again is causing more and more congestion in the ports. I think it was in about December time, there was something like 15,000 shipping containers of PPE in Felixstowe alone that was sort of waiting to come through customs. And as a result, ports in the UK and America have this huge backlog of ships waiting to get in. A lot of ships are trying to divert through Europe, so they're actually dropping the containers in Europe and then transporting them by road. Delays can take months and months and months. Now, as a result of the congestion in the Western world, with all the shipping containers, waiting to be delivered, etc., what is happening in Asia and China, there is a huge shortage of shipping containers. They can't make more because they can't get the steel. You can get the steel, you're massively paying over the odds to make them. But as a result, there's more containers going out of Asia than there is coming back, and because they're caught up in the congestion of the Western world. So as a result of that, shipping anything out of Asia now is extremely difficult. A shipping container generally, to secure the container, costs around $1,000. Recently it was $15,000 to $16,000 just to secure a shipping container. And it's classic supply and demand. The more demand there is of something, the price goes up. it's further compounded by the fact if the supplies slow down, then the prices just skyrocket. On top of that, because naturally there's more containers in the Western world compared to the East, so they're running short on that. There's also a shortage of boats. So the whole sort of global logistics equilibrium is completely out of balance at the moment. So, for example, we were trying to get something from China to the UK. You can sort of see the scale of the problem. Although it's not motorcycle related, you can see what's happening. So essentially we were buying something from China. It was an electrical good. So they had problems getting the components in because the component suppliers were struggling to get the raw materials in order to make the components. They then had delays in logistics and things like that. Eventually it got to the factory that was making the equipment. They eventually managed to make it despite repeated lockdowns in China at the moment. I mean, they had something like 1,000 cases and they locked down 11 million people. They're taking much more severely there. So eventually, after a month or two of delays, our items were finished. We then had to try and get them onto a shipping container, which took forever. And shipping quotes normally are valid for a couple of weeks. They're only valid for 24 hours now because of the supply and demand. We paid massively over odds for the shipping container. Once we got the shipping container, we then had problems trying to get it onto a boat. Eventually, a few weeks later after that, we finally got it on a boat. By this point, we were actually about 2 months behind schedule. We then had to get it from China to the UK, and it got caught in the European gridlock of imports coming into the UK. So as a result of that, we actually ended up about 4 months late receiving our goods. This is typical of things all over the world at the moment. There's repeated short supplies, blockages, delays and things like that. There's nothing your motorbikes, because your parts distributor or your motorcycle dealership, there's nothing they can do. Wheels Motorcycles in Peterborough, because I use them a lot, they have no control over the shipment of Suzukis into the UK. That is all done through Suzuki GB. But Suzuki are massively struggling, one, to get the raw materials to make the bikes. They're paying massively over the odds for it. It's then getting caught up in the logistics thing. Once they've got the finished item, they're struggling to get it out of the factory it's made in China, Thailand, wherever it may be. And then they're struggling to get it into the UK or US. So this is why things are just taking so long. And you're saying, well, hang on a minute, why don't they just send more containers to Asia? But it's not that simple. At the end of the day, logistics companies are businesses. It would be almost commercial suicide for them to have container vessels coming back purely with empty cargo containers. They're rerouting boats to try and fill up on empty containers once they've got enough cargo to make the journey viable, to try and readdress this balance. But it's going to take years to be able to do. And it's not just imports into the UK that's being affected, it's imports out of the UK. So what's happening, because of the lack of ships and things, they're trying to make as many stops as possible. So when we were exporting out of the UK, what was happening is, we booked our ship, everything was agreed, we had no problems in the UK of getting the container to export, we had no problems booking it onto the ship. 2 days after the ship left, they extended the shipping time by 2 months, because what they were doing was sending the ship round the house, around various different countries. So normally it's a direct line. The boat's now going via Dubai, I think, and other places, to try and maximise the amount of stop-offs it's doing, and also to collect empty containers if it has capacity. And then it's going on to Asia afterwards to try and deliver some containers there. Globally, as I'm saying, there's this huge problem with the supply chain the whole way through, right from mining and refining of raw minerals to your item appearing on the at your door. In a year or so, we're definitely going to see some changes. I think there's going to be more of a shortage of items, not necessarily food and things like that, but furniture, building materials, etc., because of all these different things. For example, there's currently a global shortage as well of PVC. It's pretty much impossible to get hold of. So doors, windows, etc., just can't do it. But then that's affecting things like cables, because they have the little rubber coating on. There's all, there's no limit to how much this affects once you think of it at a small scale level. In short, that is why your motorbike has been delayed by 5-6 months. It's nothing personal, it's nothing the dealer can get involved in, it just is what it is. So as a result of that, you know, in previous years I spent years working in customer service roles, and when things are late, granted, you know, people get impatient, but I think in this thing, the best thing you can do is, you know, get updates from your dealer and stuff, but be understanding of the situation that everyone's currently in. It's not their fault that your bike hasn't arrived. It's nothing through their inaction. The whole supply chain is completely shot. And it's not just that company, it's every company globally. And I think we're noticing it a lot more now because obviously, you know, in the UK you have warehouses and people keep hold of stocks of various different things. The stocks are now sort of run out, so they're relying on the imports. I mean, look at like Xboxes, PlayStation 4s. The release was months ago. Once the initial units were sold, that was it. There are no more. You cannot buy them anywhere. And that's the same thing. They're struggling to get the raw materials to make the components from. They're then struggling to get the components to the factory for assembly. Once they've got the units assembled, they're struggling to get it out of there. And it's that whole thing. So yeah, hopefully, you know, that's given you a little bit of insight into what's going on and will help you understand it. So as I'd say, you know, bear with people, please be patient. Anyway, I appreciate this video is a little bit different to normal and I hope you've enjoyed it. Let me know down in the comments below. Thank you ever so much for watching and take care.